Hello and welcome to All Villa, No Filler, a podcast all about Aston Villa, the world's greatest football team. Remember to subscribe to the show, follow us on Spotify, Apple, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcasts. This is the All Villain series where we celebrate Villa fans all over the world. This week we're joined by a key member of the London Lions, Paul Webb. A man who's been on the show many times. I'm sure many of you will know that. Great to have you back on, Webbo. First off, it's been a while since we chatted on here, actually, and good Lord, there has been a lot of football, hasn't there?
There has indeed, Frankie. It's great to be chatting to you again. But yeah, there has been a lot of football since we last chatted.
Yeah. Look, I mean, we'll look ahead to the games coming up. Obviously that's going to be the main focus, but might as well talk about it. Like, what have you made of the season so far?
So I think overall it's been amazing. We are on, I should say. It's not over yet. We're on one hell of a journey at this moment in time, and I think the focus instantly goes to one game away from Wembley, Preston away. You probably couldn't realistically have picked a better quarterfinal. It's not going to be an easy game, but in truth, when you get to the final eight, to be playing a mid-table championship team, albeit they're strong at home or hard to beat at home, rather, you'd still take that any day of the week. Where when we spoke last before a ball was kicked, you would have snatched your hand off winning a single FA Cup game with our history. So to get to a quarter final and be up against a championship team, and with Unai taking that competition really seriously, that's exciting. The Champions League has been amazing, like probably better than I thought it could be, and we're still in it. There's only eight teams left, and we've got a very, very tough tie. But there's been some amazing highs during that tournament, and I must admit, it's probably made me feel like the Premier League's been a bit of a slug this season, a bit like a tough watch at times. So I was looking back on it before tonight, and we've not really had that many comfortable wins in the Premier League this season. I think Brentford at home. I think if memory serves, we scored quite a couple of early goals in that game and sort of cruised to a victory. But it feels like the most other games we've had to really dig deep to get the points that we've got, and I think that sort of screams at it when you look at our goal difference in that it's so poor. I think Tottenham's goal difference is almost like about 15 goals better than ours.
Yeah.
We just haven't put any team to this like to bed really early this season. We've had to work a lot harder to get those Premier League points than perhaps some of the games we did last season. And I think at times, I look back at some of the home games, they've been professional wins, but not ones that live long in the memory, and they're not been as exciting because those highs have been so high in the Champions League that the league has felt a bit, yeah, almost like it's just been going on in the background and it's just in between. So it's quite a strange season, but one that I think to be still having so much to play for going into the month of April is something to be very excited about.
Yeah, I think it's a funny one where I mean, depending on how it all ends up, really. I mean, it could end up in an incredibly special season, but it might be one that we look back on in years to come and go, that was a really cool year. That was. It's just, I think, just it's just hard to appreciate it because it's so exhausting. Just because there's so many games all the time, and it just even like last week when Villa didn't play. Normally, I'd feel quite aggrieved that Villa weren't playing on a weekend while every other Premier League team was, apart from Liverpool or whatever. But this time out, I was like, I'm so glad Villa aren't playing because we're just, and I think as a fan base, we're probably just adapting to being a club that's regular in Europe. This is what I guess the so-called Big Six are more used to, and for us, it's more a case of like, other than when we were in the championship, we played a lot, but obviously the intensity of the games is very different. Now you're playing the absolute best of the best, and it is just like it's a lot to sort of get used to. And I think the players as well, even just the fan base, the coaches, all of us are sort of adapting to it, and having to get used to that, getting up for a game every 3 to 4 days. But so yeah, I mean, you travel everywhere pretty much, don't you? You go to pretty much every game I can think of. I mean, are you exhausted by it at all?
Yeah, yeah, I am. I'm fortunate enough to go to the majority of games, and um, especially with the way that the Premier League has felt, they're moving a lot of the games to 5:30. I think it has had a knock-on effect of the atmosphere for Premier League games at Villa. Um, a lot of the game we had this, what was it, 7 games in a row after the Champions League where we didn't get a result or we didn't win,
Mm.
and that overcame against Brentford, and then we finally won there, and obviously that was after a Champions League game. But I think these Champions League games just take so much out of you, whether they're at home or away. Like if you look at that home game against Bruges, the amount of effort that goes into before a game, you've got fireworks shows, all these tifos, the atmosphere, and it's like going to a final every time. And
Yeah, it is.
I'm
Yeah.
sure there's a few fans who probably think we shouldn't dial it up as much as we do for every single one of these games. Um, but it makes it a hell of an occasion. So you are absolutely right. Then there's other games where you're thinking to yourself, oh, that's kind you're almost like this is going to be a struggle to make the effort to travel to, or a struggle, but you always do it. But it does lead us to there being quite a lethargic potentially in the stands.
Mm.
And I think it probably it like gives you an indication of where the Premier League's at this season. I think it's been not just I'm not talking about Villa, but just overall the Premier League. I think it's been one of the poorest Premier Leagues that I can remember. If you look at Liverpool this season, have ran away with it, but I wouldn't consider this to be a world-class Liverpool team. They've
Agreed.
just been incredibly consistent, which is a huge credit to them. They've got world-class players who have just consistently sort of grinded out the results that other teams just have failed. You've got the bottom three who are terrible. Still took a few points off Villa along the way,
Yeah,
but
I know. Yeah.
but it just feels like there's nothing left to play for in the top or bottom of the league, and that's been the case now for a couple of weeks. So when you look at the fixtures and you talk about is it tiring to go to them, there's quite a lot of fixtures these days that just don't scream excitement anymore like they used to, and I think maybe that is part of we get excited now because we're playing in bigger games in Europe and we're getting to deeper ends of the cup competitions, that maybe we are taking the Premier League for a little bit granted, and that's not something that Unai will want to maintain. So I have a feeling there'll be a reset of that over the summer and he'll make it his focus again next season, I would have thought.
Yeah, I agree. It's and you mentioned it. We will look at the games coming up, but just to look back on it as well, like the Champions League. I mean, obviously it's our first experience of it this season, and I was at the Bruges game, I was at the Bayern game, the first one we did at Villa Park, and then I was at Celtic as well. And honestly, three of the absolute best experiences I've ever had at Villa Park. It's just, because I think for a long time we've both been going to Villa probably roughly about the same amount of time from the early Ron Atkinson era, Brian Little, all that. Um, I can't think of when I've seen Villa Park that kind of almost like a mad European, so like it's something you'd seen like the Polish league, like Lechia Warsaw last season, like just a really intense atmosphere. I mean, what have you made of the entire Champions League experience, really?
I've loved it, Frankie. Absolutely loved it. I was fortunate enough to go on the Conference League journey last year, and it felt a novelty. First time back in Europe for so long, going to random countries. But this has been special.
Mm.
And I've never really known the con. So my season ticket is in the lower hole. And normally people get into the seats, let's say if it's a 3 o'clock kickoff, by about 2:55, and they'll be
Yeah.
drinking and wherever people drink before the game or whatever they do before the game. But for a Champions League night, the Holt pub was full by 6 p.m. Against Bruges. The downstairs is rocking, or there's chants going on downstairs, which I've never normally happens in the like it doesn't happen down in the concourse. And then you get everyone's there like 10, 15 minutes, they're out in there. It's all just excitement. It's just so different. And then we've generally delivered. Like, who knows what's going to happen against PSG? But barring that Mings, handball over in Bruges, which actually turned out to be a masterstroke. I'm sure he knew
Yeah.
exactly what he was doing. We've competed in every single game that we've been in, and it's been an absolute a joy. And like going to places. One thing, if I'm being critical as a fan, I don't think we've been treated to a marquee away fixture yet.
Mm.
The draws at home, Juventus, Bayern Munich,
Yeah.
Celtic, for obviously the British connotations were fantastic. But we haven't had that marquee game to an extent. I know Monaco are probably a top tier club, but that was just such a weird place to go to. I couldn't quite get my head around it. So I
Yeah.
think that's probably one thing that's been lacking is that monster. oh, we're playing at a really, really big club now,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
hopefully
yeah.
that'll come in the semi-finals when maybe at the Bernabeu would be fantastic.
We put Jude Bellingham in tears. It feels like it's written one day to happen. So yeah, so like looking ahead, first up, the next game for Villa, obviously, it feels like miles away now, will be Preston away. Good home record, as you mentioned. Um, I mean, as well as this Champions League run, it feels like the FA Cup really could be on this season, doesn't it?
I think so, and I've been really impressed with the team selection
Yeah.
in the FA Cup. We've been had very like we're a really, really, really good home team. I think we take that for granted. I know we've had some draws at home, Palace and Ipswich probably swing to mind, but we're very hard to beat at home, which
Yeah.
is fantastic. So getting West Ham and Tottenham at home, not easy ties, but we managed to get it out. And then against Cardiff, he could very easily have rested
Hmm.
a lot more players, but Emmy was starting. I have a feeling that Emmy was desperate for a clean sheet bonus, to be quite honest, because he hadn't had one for so long. He's like, I am playing against Cardiff, I'm getting my bonus. But he's definitely taken it seriously, and it's opened up because Man City aren't the Man City they were last season. They are very vulnerable. They're going to have a very challenging game away at Bournemouth. So if you can get past Preston, and avoid Man City, which is very, this is a draw. We are currently the second favourites for that tournament,
Hmm.
um, and I think I gotta. It's scary, Frankie, because you don't want to get ahead of yourselves. But there was obviously a lot of scenes overnight that we've all seen from Newcastle, which
Hmm.
will give them their dues. They've waited a long time for that. But it's that sort of moment that you would hope the Villa players see and think, I fancy doing that. I fancy
Yeah.
doing that. And Emmy's talked about it a lot, saying how important it would be to win a trophy with this club. And he's got the right mentality.
Hmm.
So yeah, don't want to get ahead of ourselves because all we can do is beat Preston, right? They grind out results at home. They're a
Hmm.
tough team to beat at home, but we've got a nice long break. I know they will as well. We've got some world class players.
Yeah.
So we should. It's saying sitting here and saying we should beat Preston is not us being big headed. We really should beat Preston,
Hmm.
and then you could have a. Then you don't know, right? And then in the semi final, could have the likes of Palace, Fulham. All these teams who are in and around us in the Premier League. Who, if we were playing any of those teams at Villa Park, Frankie, you'd be really up for it. So yeah, we'll win this. We'll be strong
Yeah.
favourites for most of those games,
Yeah.
and you don't know at Wembley, but. I don't know. I fancy. I really do fancy it, Frankie. I really, really do. But I'm trying to keep level-headed.
Yeah. We all
I'd be
remember
absolutely
Bradford.
gutted if we don't get to Wembley. I think that would be a huge, huge. Now we are with this break that we've been fortunate in a way to be given for
Hmm.
the last 2 weeks. We've really now got to start that game against Preston and just take it away from them early on, and then
Yeah.
have a nice afternoon, Preston, wait for that draw, and then we can all start preparing for the Green Man at Wembley and having a nice few beers just down the
Yeah.
road from us, Frankie.
It's magic to think about. I mean, yeah. I mean, the thing is, like, if Villa can get past Preston, if we can do it. I mean, look, we all remember Bradford City and what happened there in the League Cup many years ago. But like, if they can, I think that the thing is, if Villa this season were to play pretty much any of those teams at home that are in the FA Cup left, I would fancy us to beat any of them. Away, I'd fancy us to lose to all of them the way we are. But
Yeah,
if it's at Wembley, there's something about Wembley that it's a big old stadium, but on top of that, but for once, we have a collection of players who've been there and done it.
yeah,
They all have big game experience. They've all, this season, they're all part of the team that beat Bayern Munich. They've had the Champions League wins. We have players who've won the FA Cup in Marcus Rashford and in Emi Martinez. Martinez, of course, has won a World Cup. You've got Asensio, a guy who's done the lot, Champions Leagues, everything. And I feel like players like Morgan Rogers, Ollie Watkins, I just feel like Wembley's where they'll just rise to it. And I just think like if we can get there, I back us to just have the players to get the job done against anybody.
yeah.
Um,
I would have really got. You got Tielemans who scored the winner for Leicester
yeah,
once upon a time. So yeah, everything you look at, you're sitting there going, "This, yeah, we could win this, but you
Yeah.
really can't say it. Can you? Can't say it too loud because
No.
we know that Preston's coming up. But the story will become I think there's four teams left that have never won the FA Cup.
Yeah.
So that
Amazing.
becomes amazingly a bigger story than the fact that our Barron run in the competition. So again, I think that helps us if people are just talking about, oh, could Brighton win their first ever trophy?
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, it
Yeah.
takes the gloss off the fact that Villa are almost in that same blooming criteria. It's been so long since we've won anything.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm that game for me is massive,
Yeah.
absolutely
Same.
massive against Preston because we are such strong favourites for it. You've got to go there, take the game away from them. Essentially, just start Asensio, and I think we just win every game, right? If
Yeah.
do we
Yeah.
need to start him and Amy Martinez and just do it themselves? I would have thought.
I mean, how good has he been,
Ah,
Asensio?
I. It's interestingly we have various WhatsApp groups and people talk to us about so and so's world class when they play for you, and you think to yourself, Ollie Watkins could be world class, Emi Martinez could be world class. You sort of believe in your own players a lot more than you can do,
Yeah.
and then somebody comes along and shows you what world class is.
Yeah.
And you sort of start thinking to yourself, if I may well have been a little bit over the top with how I wax lyrical with some of the current Villa players, because he is just a joy to watch football. The way he moves around the field, the way he just brings the ball down, just understands the way, brings players in. It's very hard not to. If you are a football fan, I would genuinely. He's one of those where I was growing. Who would you pay money to watch? And I know the
Yeah.
price of tickets is stupid, but when I was growing up, that was always a criteria of which player. And I remember once Raphael van der Vaart came to Villa Park and Tottenham won. I think it was 4-0, maybe 4-1. And people asked me who's the best players you've seen at Villa Park, and he had that performance was sensational. Like he was somebody I was happy to pay to watch. And
Mm.
Asensio is in the same ilk, like just a joy.
Yeah.
Just gets the game, finds those pockets. And it's absolutely mad the relationship that him and Rashford
Yeah.
have sparked out of nowhere.
Yeah.
Like these
Yeah.
are two lone players. This January transfer window could be talked about for years to come of how to do business. You bring in two players, and who knows, they might bring a trophy back each, right? Two trophies at the end of the season, and
Yeah.
then can leave the club and never have to play for us again, and then get the freedom of Birmingham for the rest of their lives.
Yeah. I loved reading that Marco Asensio apparently loves the local Birmingham restaurants. So that was great. I just love the idea of him going around to Papa John's or something like that.
It's
But
very stark contrast to the Wolves manager who, after they won, said there's no restaurants worth going to in
oh,
Wolverhampton.
that's unbelievable, isn't it?
I mean,
What a thing to
having grown up there, he's bang on. But
yeah.
it started off with him trying to appease himself to their fan base, and then he just said there's no nice restaurants there. I think his heart was in the right place. So I think he might have
Yeah.
got that one slightly wrong.
Yeah. Well, essentially clearly found quite a few places in Birmingham, and yeah,
Yeah.
the Baltic Triangle. That's where I'd be hanging out. But I mean, look. I mean, we've talked about the FA Cup. Obviously, the big game everyone's looking at, I guess, really, is Paris Saint-Germain, isn't it? And firstly, are you going to be going to Paris? And secondly, can we get past them?
So it's Easter holidays, so I will not be in Paris. It'll be the first game I've missed, but I have changed my flight home from the Easter holidays so that I'll be there for the home leg.
Right.
That was the compromise that was made in the family household when a day trip from Egypt to Paris was discussed and quickly shut down. So that will be the first one I miss of this campaign. But I will be there, excited, nervous, and all those feelings at Villa Park. Do I think we can get through? I mean, we've just talked about where we are in the FA Cup, and it's the exact opposite, really, isn't it? If Paris,
Mm.
that performance that we saw against Liverpool was levels that I'm not 100% sure we can reach.
Yeah.
Um, I hope we can. So I think if Paris Saint-Germain play to their absolute best, they're going to be very hard to stop in the whole tournament. I would go
Yeah.
as far as that. You've got the French FA looking like they're going to postpone games so that they get plenty of rest time and all this sort of stuff. So they are priming themselves to go all the way. Um, so it's going to be very, very hard. A couple of things that could work in our favour. There's a lot of underlying storylines to this fixture. You've got the Unai going back. You got Asensio. You sort of think Asensio will score against them because that's just a nice media storyline waiting to happen.
Mm.
A Unai masterclass in one of the legs is another media storyline waiting to happen.
Yeah.
And this is, it sounds like I'm being disrespectful to Villa, but we're not that big a name on the Champions League scene. Like,
Mm.
as they'll be taking this very seriously in the quarterfinals, but playing Liverpool on a Champions League stage is huge.
Yeah.
Playing Aston Villa isn't. We haven't got the pedigree for the last 20 years in the European tournaments. It's probably a few of the French players playing for Paris Saint-Germain who's barely heard of us. Obviously, the Premier League is so has such a captive audience that you get airtime through that. So I'm trying to convince myself that they may take us lightly, Frankie. That's where my mind is trying to take me to convince myself that we have a chance, but it will be huge underdogs. But that doesn't mean we can't cause some problems. I just hope we're within one goal minimum or maximum rather, um, going into the home leg. I hope it's something to play for. I'd take 2-1, 1-0 in PSG behind, and then we just start that game at Villa Park rocking and just see how the game goes. I'd
Yeah.
absolutely love a penalty shootout.
I
Emmy
know.
versus Donnarumma.
Yeah. Yeah.
0-0 after 20 penalties.
Yeah.
And then you also think about Emmy in Paris. I mean,
Yeah.
that's assuming he doesn't get himself sent off as soon as he tries to hijack the Eiffel Tower as he lands, or
Yeah.
the madness he's going to do. But these are when you talk about how exciting this season to be. We're talking about us being in Paris in a Champions League quarter-final, so you can only be excited for it.
Yeah.
A very different mindset to when we talk about the FA Cup. Talks about the FA Cup, that's there to be won.
Yeah.
So I'm very cautious talking about that. I'm over the moon to talk about the Champions League because no one's taken us seriously beyond this. Everything's we're going to get hammered. Everything's we're going to go out. So
Yeah.
why not enjoy ourselves and just see what Unai and the team go? And let's just hope he doesn't overthink it and try to play back three or something like that in PSG and the game's gone. But yeah,
Yeah.
what do you think, Frankie? Where's your head at?
Yeah, I mean, I said it the other week that I think PSG at the moment are they seem to have been doing exactly what Luis Enrique's Barcelona did when they won the treble exactly 10 years ago when they started the season quite patchy. We didn't just weren't really clicking, and then suddenly in about December, January, something clicked, and then from there it just became an unstoppable tidal wave. Just like no one could really stop them. And it feels like PSG might have just done that. Dembele is just hitting incredible form, and all these young Parisians who all play together. Obviously, losing Mbappe and then having them all come together to mesh as one. It is going to take time for that to work, and then now it has seemingly. They're just going to be really, really up for it, and I think their movement and pace is going to be something that we've not really faced probably this season, and maybe not like in decades, really, like the way they play. But I think, with Emery and his European experience, that is a big asset. And like I said, we have players who've been there and done it in a lot of big games. I think it's just, we did it against Bayern, we held out, and that was pretty relentless pressure. So we've been there and done it once before. I mean, instinctively, I feel like PSG probably are going to be the benchmark that we're not quite at. We're not at that level yet, but it's definitely, Emery's here till 2029. This is all a learning experience. It's all, over time, these experiences help us build up and become a better team over the longer haul. But yeah, I do think we can go there and surprise. I definitely think we can do something. I feel the Jude Bellingham story's right there with Real Madrid. But yeah, I think it could well be one of the toughest fixtures we've had maybe in a very, very long time.
Yeah,
But
when you combine it over the two legs, I think it is the difficulty thing because obviously the Bayern was a league game one off, so everyone was still learning what this tournament was then about, and Bayern probably got it wrong, so they'll get it right next year. So I think over two legs, you're absolutely right. This will be the toughest game we've certainly had under Emery in terms of when you
yeah.
combine it over the two legs, 100%.
But yeah, I mean, yeah, I'm extremely excited about it because as Ric Flair once said, to be the man, you got to beat the man. And PSG pretty much are the man at the moment, aren't they?
Very true.
But yeah, like I said, I think it's all a upward trajectory, but and these are all parts of the learning process. And who knows? Who knows what we can do?
Indeed.
Um, with the league, now, as you said earlier, like the Premier League, it's been a bit of a I found it a tough watch the Premier League a lot this season. There's been a lot of times I've not actually enjoyed it that much just because I feel like we're watching Villa just constantly having injuries and constantly having to deal with trying to up their energy levels from playing midweek all the time. And then it just feels like it's been very difficult to get rhythm going. But we're still there. We're still well in contention for Champions League spots again. Do you think we could do it? I mean, what do you expect for the rest of the season?
But I think the next few games are going to be critical. That I think we've got Brighton and Forest, and they're obviously both teams in and around us. Uh, I don't, I don't think we'll finish top five. I do think we're going to go deep in the FA Cup, and with this chat with the Champions League that we've got, the fixture in between PSG is Southampton away, and you have to win that
You
game.
do, yeah.
And I think we will rest a lot of players depending on what's happened in Paris, which is the right decision, by the way. That shouldn't be the priority. So you could end up at not getting those 3 points, which is just should be a given. I also think there's too many teams in and around that contention. I think the points to make up is fine, but we've got to overtake like about 4 teams, and our goal difference is the worst. And usually the
Yeah.
goal difference speaks volumes of where a team should finish. Um, so you'd have to start thinking about who's going to drop the points for us to overtake them, and you just assume Man City will crank it up a little bit at some point and get enough points to finish in that top five, which is going to be Forest. Fair play to them; they are absolutely rocking at the moment. So are they? If we would have to beat Forest to finish above them, I think. If we don't beat them, we're not going to finish above them. So I just can't see a team where we are with the amount we have to catch up in terms of numerous places, albeit points not too huge, and then our goal difference.
Mm.
I just can't see us putting that consistency together. I know at the moment we're like won 4 of the last 5, is it, or something like that. So we're out and in all competitions. So we're finding a nice patch at the moment. But I just think with these big games coming up, the Premier League will feel a bit second draw to a few of the players, and we'll see some patchy performances between now and the end of the season. And when you're behind when you're trying to catch people up, you can't afford for that. I don't think we're going to fall away or be like disastrous or anything like that. I think we'll finish in and around seventh, something like
Yeah.
that. So I think we'll be in Europe next season in one form or another. Um, I assume I would be betting on us being in the Europa League next season.
Yeah.
I think the only way we'd get Champions League is we win it because I don't think we'll finish top five. And I'm not going to come on here and say we're going to win the Champions League. So I think we'll be in Europe next season, Frankie, which is what we need to be.
Yeah.
I have absolutely no idea what the club have budgeted towards, if they've budgeted towards a second campaign in the Champions League or not. What I do know is that they did not budget for the amount of wins that we've already had and the progression. That wasn't them being pessimistic, that was them being realistic as to how much money. So they've earned a lot more money from the Champions League this year than they had put in their budget, which is a really positive thing. So hopefully that is shown when we get into the transfer window in the summer, and that we maybe not be as restricted as we could have been.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think in summary, I think we'll finish outside the top four, but in top eight, so like sixth, seventh, or eighth, we'll finish.
Yeah, I'm sort of veering towards seventh-ish, I think. I think you're right with the goal difference and just the sheer volume of games again. And I noticed after the second PSG game, about 3 days later, we play Newcastle, which Liverpool just found out when you play PSG and then play Newcastle a few days later, it's really hard to compete with a team that's so physical as they are. I mean, that said, I mean, a lot of our players are coming. I mean, pretty much everyone's back suddenly at
Yeah.
long last. So if that can make a potential difference. It's just, and you never know. I mean, the form has picked up recently, so if it can carry on as a wave towards the end of the season, maybe we can get wins that we're looking at on paper and thinking, Brighton away, for instance, I look at and think, form Brighton are in, it's going to be very hard to win that, and then you never know, maybe we go and do it. It's just
I
that
mean, I mean, you're absolutely right. The squad has never been better. And
Yeah.
literally in terms of world-class players we've now added, and when they've finished this little trip to Dubai, fingers crossed everyone comes back from international campaign with as few minutes as possible and
Yeah.
they're all fit. Then you're right, we are peaking, potentially peaking right at the correct time. Everyone will tell you that there's loads of games coming up in a short amount of time, but they have had just had like 20 days off. Like they should be raring to go. It's like a real
Yeah.
mini pre-season for the, especially for like the likes of Asensio, Disasi, Mings, who aren't being called up for international breaks, and Arna's out there training. Pau Torres will be back.
Mm.
So I'm optimistic for the rest of the season. I just don't. I think for us to get that top five, you'd probably be only allowed to lose three games,
Yeah, I think it's a big
which I
ask.
think, and and that's probably even pushing it.
Yeah.
And I just think we've been so patchy at times this season. When we talked about it earlier, we haven't put anyone away easy this season.
No, we haven't.
Hardly anyone. Brentford at home was generally the only one I look back on. Even when we beat Everton 3-2, we were like 2-0 down in that game. We um so that tells me that we struggle to beat teams, to be honest.
Mm.
And if that continues, that tends to mean you're in quite even games.
Mm.
And if you have the rest of the season all even games, you don't win them all. So you're going to have to step it up. You have to become more ruthless in front of goal. I think that's something that Watkins has, albeit he's going to break the Premier League scoring record for Villa this season, still be our top scorer, I'm sure, by the end of the season. He hasn't been to his same levels as he has been previously, so we might have to rely on Marlon, Rashford, and a few others to take those chances. Because I think this season creating chances hasn't been our issue, and we've even added to that in the January window.
Mm.
It's being clinical enough, and if we can be clinical enough and get these goals to go 2-0 up. Look at Brentford away, that goal that was offside. If that's a goal, then that probably becomes a really comfortable victory.
Mm.
So we need a few of those performances, and ultimately in the Premier League, I just haven't seen any of them to give
Yeah.
me the confidence that we're going to then string five, six, seven together in a turn. And do I think that this squad is capable of doing it? Yeah, I thought it all season. That's why when you just analyse the Premier League, it's been a frustrating season.
Mm.
Um, but you have to go on what's happened already this season. To completely just go on a run now would be quite out of character. But that's why I just think it's not likely to happen.
And yeah, and given if Villa do get Europa League, I think that's still an amazing achievement given the sheer volume of games we've had this season and how difficult it's been with injuries and all that. We never hear the bloody end of how Spurs have injuries or Man U had loads of injuries last season. It's like Aston Villa for 2 years straight have had an injury crisis. And it's absolutely remarkable that we've been able to do what we've done so far.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
and
some
and
key players in that have stayed fit. Konza probably been, if he'd have gone at certain points in the last 2 years, we'd been no defenders at all. So you're right. It's lovely to see Mings and people coming back to full fitness and
Mm.
actually adding great value to the squad.
Yeah, for sure. And like I say, like if Villa got Europa League, I'd look at it and think, well, we've got a manager who's won it 4 times. We're a team who's got Champions League quarter final, potentially further than that experience. We can go win this. Like, I'd be, and the thought of Villa winning the Europa League, it's like just honestly, like I could go down to a pub right now and buy everyone around just thinking about it. Like it's,
I,
you
would- I
know,
mean, yeah, I think to do what, so I think if I was to say a question to you now, based on exactly where we are, what do you think is success this season now?
oh, I think getting to Wembley in the FA Cup,
So would
and
you say semi is success, or does it have to get to the final as well?
I think if we got seventh, if we got Europa League qualification through the league, a Wembley semi, and a Champions League quarter, I'd say that was still it's a successful season in the sense of you think of the context of where Villa have been for such a long time. We probably can't, jump too quickly and throw toys at the pram that we didn't get everything we wanted. And sometimes it doesn't always work out one season and you come back the next. But I think real success this season, I guess, would be final of the FA Cup, go and bloody win it, and getting sixth, seventh in the Premier League. I think that would be a
Yeah.
tremendously successful season.
I completely. I think before a ball was kicked, if you'd have said those three things, a cup run to Wembley, if you'd have worded it like that, seventh in the league and quarters of the Champions League, you'd be absolutely saying, "Yeah, I'll take that." And I
Yeah,
think, but right now, I think you have to say quarters. I think even the most ambitious Villa fan will say we're underdogs against PSG. So
yeah,
I hope we give them a good game. That for me would be for what remains of whatever the Champions League. I just hope we don't go out with a whimper. I hope we go out and just give them a really good game, and there's something to play for at Villa Park, and they're under the cosh, and we ask them loads and loads of questions.
Hmm.
So that a valiant defeat in the quarters, I would be able to accept against PSG, albeit I hope that's not how it ends. For me, I think now with the draw, with the teams that are left, you have to get to the final of that FA Cup.
yeah,
Obviously, winning it then on the final is a very different matter. But I think if it would now be deemed unsuccessful, I think even Man City in the semi-final are beatable. So
I agree.
that's the worst draw you get, right? So with the teams that are left, I think now you have to say if you don't get to the final, it's been that tournament therefore is unsuccessful. I think anything below seventh still remains unsuccessful in the league.
Yeah, for sure. And yeah, I think, and if you look at the FA Cup, I don't think you'll ever have a better chance of winning it. Like, really, I mean, the amount
Mm.
of big teams that are all out of it, it's just there to be won by us or
I don't think Man City will win it. That's what I'm going to say. I don't think Man City will win it this year. So
yeah,
it's then who's going to step up.
it's yeah,
So I
yeah,
just absolutely hope it's us.
absolutely agreed. So I guess just as on a final question on the season, I was trying to think about this earlier. Like, who would be your player of the season so far?
It's interesting because I think there's a lot of underperforming players. I think there's two that stand out for me. That's Morgan Rogers has just continued to take strides forwards
Yeah,
much more than I probably ever thought he could, and he's there's sometimes in games he's just been a joy to watch. I think Man City at home he was just exceptional. Um, I do think we've overplayed him.
yeah,
I think he needs a rest. I think if there's one criticism of Emery is that sometimes doesn't fully utilise that area. But for me, player of the season has been Yuri Tillemans. I think he's been again probably has played too many games, but recently we haven't had any other midfield options. And I think he's been close to 8 out of 10 for every single game he's played. I'm sure there's a couple he was below par, but he gets involved defensively, gets involved attacking wise. It just seems to be the heartbeat of the team, and I think he would be our biggest loss. And I think he's been a joy to watch. So I think yeah. So for me, Yuri Tillemans has been our player of the season.
yeah. I'd agree. I'd have gone with Tielemans. I think there could be, depending how this season ends and if Asensio continues his form. I know he's only been here half the season, but he could very well end up being player of the season if things go how we hope.
Yeah,
But
I'll take that. That means it's been a very good end to the season.
yeah, and I mean, it's also just surreal to think Marcus Rashford plays for Aston Villa.
And
Like
he's playing
what?
right. He's not just come for the money. He's
No.
enjoying it. It's really nice to see.
Because I watched him live for the first time against Bruges last week, and Asensio the same thing. Now Asensio obviously just a technically amazing player, but Rashford was really interesting to watch live because I saw a side to his game that I don't think I've ever really appreciated watching him just on TV, and that is that I know he's very quick, he can beat a man, get to the byline, pull it back, and all that, but he does something that's very Grealish like as well. Like it's almost like he can pinpoint a pass direct into someone's feet that like almost no one else really sees or makes that pass. It's almost like only from that left-sided area Grealish
Yeah.
does it. Um, he's doing really well, isn't he, Rashford at the moment?
He's trying to make. He's proving a point. He's a man. I wouldn't say he's playing for the Villa shirt. He's playing for his own personal reputation, and I have absolutely no issue with that at all. He's hungry. He wants to
Mm.
prove people wrong, and we've given him a platform to do that. And long may it continue, because he's exciting, and defenders do not want to be up against a fully fit, fully motivated Marcus Rashford.
No, and a lot of pundits are going to say who don't watch Villa will say, "Well, Rashford's been to Villa, he hasn't scored yet." And it's actually, if you watch his game, it's not really about him scoring. It's more
No,
about his
you can
assists
tell
and
it's getting him.
creativity.
He wants a goal, doesn't he? You could
Yeah,
see it against Bruges, how he wanted one. But I think he's had about 3 or 4 assists or whatever. He's contributing. He's hungry, and he will get a goal. He can get the winner against Preston for all I care. That'll be a
Yeah.
nice way to mark it. One of those 30-yard thunderbolts that he does with the ball and all that.
And may we never
Preferably
for
in the first few minutes to calm my nerves on that day.
yeah, and may we never forget that he scored a winner against PSG in a Champions League last 16 game, I think it was.
Yeah,
Or
he likes that stadium. That was another thing I was thinking to myself. He likes the stadium. There we go. That is
yeah.
it's written in the stars.
So yeah, we can have some chances at PSG. You
Mm.
know, we're a team who create chances, and they could underestimate us. You never know. Weber, honestly, thanks so much for coming on. I love chatting Villa with you, football with you. We're both part of the London Lions. For those who might be from the London area who are listening, how can you get involved, and who are the London Lions?
Yeah, I mean, there's many different ways. There's Facebook, social media. You can find it at London Lions. They're split across the north, south, east, and west. So it's a really great way to meet other Villa fans in London. The Tap in Elephant and Castle is a pub that is designated to Villa fans on match days when Villa are playing. They've also opened up a new bar just by Wembley Stadium. Forget what it's actually called, but they've just opened up a second bar right next to Wembley Stadium. They're inviting Villa fans along to watch the game there against Preston. So if you're in the North London area and you fancy watching Villa v Preston underneath the arches of Wembley, there is a Villa fan pub there now to watch. And then also there's a football team. So if you want to play football wearing the Villa colours, we play most Sundays at Corham's Field. And again, that's online, and we're always willing to have extra players, aren't we, Frankie? We always need that squad depth.
Yeah, particularly if you're young.
Yeah, young. If you're like a Marcus Rashford, you've got a point to prove. That would be
Yeah,
fantastic.
yeah. If you've got a bit of pace, that's very helpful to us.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But thanks so much again, Webbo. Okay, thank you everybody for listening. I've been your host, Frankie Maguire. Catch you in a bit, Webbo.
See you soon, mate.
And goodbye from me. We'll be back again soon. But until then, come on, Super Aston Villa.